Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. Listen, if you are struggling to overcome sales objections as a freight broker or freight agent, you're in the right place. Today, I'm going to share with you one of the biggest secrets to overcoming sales objections. Without this, you are going to struggle. I promise you. I promise you, you're going to struggle if you don't understand the concepts I'm going to share with you today. Thank you for joining me. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dennis Brown. Been a freight broker since 2003. Grew that company to about $80 million in sales. Sold that company. But I'm also the owner of FreightBrokerBootcamp.com, which is the most cost-effective and comprehensive online freight broker, freight agent training program. If you're curious about that, you can check it out at FreightBrokerBootcamp.com. Now, listen, guys, I do these weekly lives every Monday at noon. So thank you for joining me. This is called my Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. I have some really cool notes. As a matter of fact, this is my notes for today's training. And this is actually a cheat sheet that you will be able to download with the actual script that I'm going to share with you today. Okay, that secret script that will, I'm virtually guarantee, help you to overcome those sales objections that you're getting. Okay, so stick around to the end and you will get a link where you can actually download this cheat sheet, which is a summary of the entire training. So don't worry about grabbing a pen and paper and feverishly writing everything down. Thank you so much for being here. Again, here's the agenda. We're going to do the live training, and then we're going to jump into live Q&A. Hold your questions to the end, okay? Please hold your questions to the end. And in the meantime, let's see what we got here. Hit me up in the comments with your city and state. We'll do some quick shout outs and then we'll jump into the training, okay? So thank you guys for being here. Welcome, Cynthia Moore from Maryland, as always. Carl Gillis from Bethlehem, Georgia. Betty Jones, welcome. Andrew Cornwell from Indianapolis, welcome. Betty from Raleigh. Paul from Cortland, Ohio. Jason Rouse from Olivia, Minnesota. Thank you guys for joining me. Appreciate you being here. We usually have people from all over, so hit me up in the comments and give me a quick shout out, or let me know where you're logging in. I'm in the Buffalo, New York area. Sometimes we have people local here, but we have people from Central America, Colombia, Canada, Ukraine, Australia, Africa, people from all over the place joining these lives. It's kind of crazy sometimes. Mexico. But listen, I'm just happy that you're here. Truly appreciate it. I'm going to try my absolute best to try to over deliver for you today. And again, if you stick around to the end, you will get the cheat sheet where I break down everything I'm going to go over today. Okay, so let me grab a quick drink while we're getting a few people live, and then we'll jump right in. Corey from Billings, Montana. Vishaka from Metuchen, New Jersey. I'm sorry. Simon, you got your shirt. Awesome. From Nashville. Good. Very cool. Yeah, occasionally I'll do giveaways, right? These Freightpreneur t-shirts, someone who solves problems you don't know you have in ways you can't understand. Kieran Logistics, welcome from San Jose. H2E, welcome. People from all over the place. I love it. Jordan from Naples, Florida. All right, perfect. All right, I'm going to grab a quick drink and we'll get this show on the road, okay? Okay, so let me just do a quick review here, make sure we're good. My phone notifications are off. Let's make sure the Mac notifications are off. Yes, it is. No interruptions. I suggest you do the same. But again, you don't have to worry about taking notes. Okay, so if you're struggling with overcoming sales objections as a freight broker or freight agent, if you've ever heard objections like, we're not interested, or we're happy with our current provider, or, we don't do business with brokers, things of that nature. If you've heard those types of objections, what I'm about to share with you today will absolutely positively help you to overcome those objections. Now, this is not a magic bullet, but this is something that very few people, very few brokers, very few agents that I've ever met in my entire career, in over 20 years in the freight industry, understood or deployed. Okay. So I'm going to share with you, again, a very important, this is kind of a tactic, it's kind of a strategy that will absolutely positively allow you to have better success when trying to overcome common sales objections. And we all know we are going to run into sales objections. Rarely, if ever, are we going to get on the phone with a prospect and there's not going to be some sort of objection. Okay. So, what's the secret? The secret is you have to learn how to disarm your prospect. Now, what do I mean by that? Disarming your prospect. Well, sometimes you get on the phone with a prospect and the first thing you get is resistance. Oh, we're not interested. Or, hey, we're happy with our current providers. That can happen literally in the first 15 to 30 seconds of a cold call, of a sales call. So how do you overcome that? You haven't gathered enough sales intelligence. You may not understand, the timing may be difficult. They may rush you off the phone. And so what you need to do, what you need to learn to do is how to disarm your prospects. And that's what this is going to do right here. So this is a script that I put together for you guys, and you will be able to download this. At the end of this, you'll be able to download this. We'll put a link here on the screen where you can download it, but you got to stick around to the end here. Again, this is a free cheat sheet and a free download that you'll have full access to. Hang around to the end here and you guys will be able to get that free download. So here's the script. You get on the phone, you introduce yourself, and the first thing you get is an objection. Let's say the objection is, hey, Dennis, we're happy with our current providers. So here's what I would say in that case. Joe, I'm not even sure that I can help you. First, I want you to understand something. I'm not here to try to replace your current brokers or carriers. That's not why I made the call. But I might be able to help identify some gaps where we might be able to help. Now is obviously not a good time, but would you be open to a quick call? Okay, so let's break down what I just did there. This is really important that you understand. There's really three components to what I just did. Number one, there's the words, right? There's the actual script. That's the easy part, okay? But the script is, and again, you'll be able to download this exact script at the end here if you stick around. But the words are the simple part. The hard part, the harder part is the tone and the inflection in the cadence, right? You sound like a real human. You sound like you have empathy and that you understand what they're doing. And you are talking to someone as if they're a friend, as if they're a colleague, as if they're, someone that that you're familiar with, right? It's not a robotic sales call, right? So, there's a lot that goes into that. But what I'm doing, the key to this and the secret to this and what I'm sharing with you is you are disarming the prospect. How are you disarming them? You're saying, the first thing you say is, Joe, I'm not even sure that I can really help you. That in itself is going to kind of take the hair on the back of their neck down, because now you're not saying what most brokers are saying, which is, hey, I'm the greatest broker in the world and I can save you all kinds of money. And hey, I've got thousands of trucks and, I'd like to get all your freight. You're not saying that. You're actually taking a very contrarian approach and you're saying, I'm not even sure at this point if I can help you. And then you're further alleviating their concerns by saying, I'm not here to replace your current providers. Okay, so again, now all of a sudden they relax because they're like, well, listen, I've been doing business with XYZ for 20 years and I've been doing business with ABC for 10 years now and they get all my freight and I trust them. Well, if you help to disarm them by letting them know that's not your goal up front, you are much more likely to get them to relax, okay? And to start having a real conversation with you. Because the reality is, when they give you this objection, we're happy with our current providers, you've got just a couple of seconds to react. And if you don't react quickly and you don't say the right things in the right way, that call is going to end very abruptly, and then your opportunity is lost. So again, this is not a cure-all. This is not a magic pill. This is a way to try to recover from an objection that's going to end quickly. perfect example that, we're happy with our current providers. This fits very good in a variety of formats. But the reality is, again, disarming your prospect is really, really important, right? And then I continue to go on with what I am trying to do. And this is an important one where I say, but I might be able to, and I say, I might be able to help identify some gaps where we might be able to help. So you're taking more of a consultative approach. You're not saying that I'm the greatest thing in the world and that I can fix all your problems. You're simply saying that, hey, I might be able to identify some of your problems, some of your challenges, and I may be able to support you in those areas. I may or may not. I'm not sure. But if we can jump on a quick call, we'll be able to figure that out very, very quickly. So again, disarming your prospect is a critical step in order to move to the next stage. Now, the next stage, right? Let's assume they set up the call, right? Let's assume that they take the call, they allow you to do that call. What do we do on the next call? Well, the next call, you can't go in and just start beating them over the head with your pitch and trying to close them, right? That's not what we're going to do. That's not going to work. We have to continue this approach, and that approach is ask some good questions with the goal of one thing, trying to better understand what their challenges are, what their fears are, what their demeanor is, how their freight moves, things of that nature. So I'm going to give you a few questions. I want you to lean in, and this will be a part of the cheat sheet as well. I'm going to give you a few questions that you can ask in this consultative approach. Okay. So here we go. And these are just examples. There are literally hundreds of questions you could ask, but these are just a few questions that you could ask taking a very consultative approach. One of them might be, hey, Joe, is your freight, again, now we're on this next call, right? We've done the introduction, and you simply say to them, listen, in order to try to identify some gaps and better understand how we might be able to help you, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Is that okay? And they're going to say, sure. And then you ask questions slowly and be very conscious of not trying to drill them, that's not an interrogation. Okay. So one of the questions might be something like, Joe, is your freight more consistent in lane based, or is it more project based where it changes frequently? And then you listen. Now, why is that an important question? It's an important question because lane-based freight is a lot easier and a lot more predictable. Project-based freight, where say they're doing a big construction job, or they're delivering to, a bunch of product to an oil field or something that's a one-time project. These one-off projects sometimes are a little bit more challenging logistically for a variety of reasons. So understanding that is an important question for you, okay, in order to take your next steps. Now, if they say it's lane-based, you could ask a question like, well, how often do you add new lanes or new customers jump into the mix, right? So that's an important question. Another question you might say if it's lane-based is, with all the volatility in the market today, what's been the most challenging lane for you in the last few months? Right? So what you're trying to identify is some pain. You're trying to identify where they're having challenges. And so you gather all that information, you gather that sales intelligence, right? Now, if they were to say it's project-based, you might ask a question like, so how far into the future are your typical lead times for these types of projects, right? Do you get a week? Do you get a month? Do you get 6 months? How long do you have to plan and prepare the logistics component beforehand? Now, if they tell you, well, we typically get the orders and then it's a week later, you know that they've got to scramble in order to put that all together. But on the same token, if they say, well, we typically get these orders 3 months out, so we know we have an approximate date about 3 months out. Okay. So that makes a big difference. Those are the type of consultative questions that you can ask to gather information so that you can determine if, in fact, you can help them. Okay. All right. So that was for the first question. A couple of variations and follow-up questions that will help you. Okay. Another question you might ask. So, Joe, the last provider, actually, let's say, Joe, the last broker you consciously decided to stop doing business with. Could you tell me a little bit about what happened and why? Do you see how that works? What you're trying to do is you're trying to, rather than asking them, a question that's going to create a lot of become adversarial, what you're trying to do is you're being empathetic and understanding the challenges that they've went through. And in turn, you understand what's top of mind and what they're not going to accept. And you're getting them to open up to you, right? So you're building that rapport. Okay. So that's an example of a good question. Another good question is, what's the most challenging part about working with brokers? Right? So you're trying to be that listener. You're trying to differentiate yourself by saying, listen, what are the challenges you're having with typical brokers? And then eventually you're going to come in and explain why you're different. Okay. So those are an example of some questions. I mean, there are hundreds of different questions you could ask, hundreds of different permutations of these questions that I just shared with you. But these are examples of consultative questions that will allow you to gather additional information to determine if, in fact, you can help them. But the key here is this. Step one is to disarm them, right? Use that script. Again, use that outline, use that framework that I shared with you to disarm them and get them to relax a little bit. Okay, because it's very hard when it's very tense, right? Especially in an early conversation, okay? And then the second part is you need to take a consultative approach by asking good questions rather than just trying to propose a one-size-fits-all, hey, just give me some lanes and I'll do a quote for you, right? And we'll see if we can be the cheapest guy. That's going to end you up at the bottom of a very dark and not so profitable barrel. Okay, where you don't want to be. Okay, so listen, if you guys want this cheat sheet, here's all you got to do. Go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/secret. Okay, I'm going to put it up here on the screen right now. Let me just add it. So I should have done that before. freightbrokerbootcamp.com -secret, not dash, I should say. freightbrokerbootcamp.com/secret. This will give you access to download the cheat sheet, including the scripts, including the framework, including the questions, including everything that you need that we just went over in this episode, okay, and in this training. And listen, again, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com /secret to get the download. If you're curious about becoming a freight broker, maybe you're just looking for some freight broker startup help, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Trained over 10,000 students there. Many of those students have went on to build 6, 7, 8-figure businesses. Again, and we offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee. So appreciate you guys being here. If you enjoyed this, make sure you hit the like button. Hit me in the comments with any questions you have or topics you might have for future videos. And appreciate you being here, and we'll see you next week. All right. So for those of you that are going to stick around for live Q&A, first, download the cheat sheet, okay? Download the cheat sheet. It's free, costs you $0. Will take you 60 seconds to download. Make sure you do that, freightbrokerbootcamp.com /secret, and that will give you the secret to overcoming sales objections cheat sheet. Now, this is a 2-part training that I just went over. The most important part, obviously, is to disarm the prospect, okay? Because if you don't disarm them, it's impossible to get to that consultative approach and start asking questions. So you have to learn how to disarm them. And this script that I just gave you, the script that I just shared with you, and the tips that I just shared with you will absolutely positively help you to overcome any objection, right? But particularly those objections you get early on. Hey, we don't do business with brokers, or hey, we're not interested, or hey, we don't, we're happy with our current providers. Those types of things are things you're going to hear in sales. And this script is not going to work 100% of the time, but imagine this. Out of 100 times you get those objections, if all you were able to do was salvage 20 to 30% of them and turn them into phone calls, turn them into a continued conversation, how much could that add up to in revenue and profit over the next year, 3 years, 5 years, decades, right? You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, potentially millions of dollars in profit in your pocket by understanding a basic framework and a basic script that you'll be able to deploy on how to disarm your prospects. Okay. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Give me a quick heads up here. Is this the type of training that you guys really are interested in? I mean, is this something that's helpful to you? Hit me up in the comments with 1 to 10. 1 being, Dennis, this isn't anything I'm really interested in. It isn't something that helps me. 10 meaning, hey, listen, this is perfect. This is exactly what I need. I truly appreciate it. It's a great training. So hit me up, give me some feedback in the comments and let me know. Somebody says volume off. You can't hear me? Can you guys hear me? Okay, you can hear me. Okay, so somebody was having a hard time. All right, cool. So apparently you're hearing me because a bunch of people are commenting back. Great. I was hoping to God that something didn't happen to my volume while we were recording here, because that would have been a nightmare. I would have had to have done it all over. All right. Okay, so you can hear me. Great. All right, so 1 to 10. 1 meaning, hey, listen, Dennis, this is just not up my alley. 10 meaning this is perfect. Anywhere in between. If it's anything less than an 8, just tell me why. Give me some feedback. Give me some tips. Give me some suggestions on how I can make it better, right? Because that's my goal. So, and hold tight because we are going to do live Q&A, but hold your questions until I'm done collecting feedback, and we will go from there. All right. So it looks like this is a good topic for you guys. I know you guys like sales trainings. I know you like scripts. I know you like to be able to download these things. So I hopefully I hit the trifecta, right, with those 3 things. All right. Good feedback. Good feedback. Good. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. And make sure you download the cheat sheet. So let's do some questions. I'm not going to do a giveaway today. Maybe we'll do another one in the future. But listen, let's do some questions. Here's what I know. We've got a relatively short period of time allotted for questions. I probably will not get to everybody's questions. Please don't be offended. I'll try to come back in the following week and try to reply to some of your questions if I have time. If not, you can always come back next week, but I will do my absolute best. Okay. Oh, and by the way, cool. All right, good. Carl Gills, thank you so much. That's awesome. Oh, by the way, listen, as you guys are putting some questions in here, here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to give you a big hint. Okay. What does that tell you that I just put up on the screen? freightbreakerbootcamp.com/waitlist. Okay. If you are not on the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator coaching program waitlist, wink, wink, you're missing out. Okay. Why? Because I'm going to be opening enrollment very, very soon. And I changed the program. So the program is even more comprehensive. Okay. It's even more hands-on, right? So I've upgraded the program, updated the program, and I'm going to make it even better. Now, previous students have given me a 9.2 out of 10. My goal is to try to hit a 10. Now, that's probably not attainable, but I'm going to be opening enrollment very, very soon for the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. So if you are not on the wait list, okay, and you need help in any way with Freight Broker Sales training, coaching, how to get shippers, any of that related to driving revenue as a freight broker when it comes to sales, you need to get on the wait list. Now, it's not a free program. It's not a cheap program. It's even more expensive now than it was in the past, but I assure you the return on investment for you could be absolutely incredible, but you won't know unless you try, unless you get involved. Okay. So get on the wait list for the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. Again, that's where I take this piece of my brain, everything I know about freight broker sales strategy, tactics, tools, and my entire system that I put together that allowed me to do over $200 million as a freight broker. And I'm going to share that. I'm going to transplant that into your head. and help you roll that out into your business so that you can see huge growth in 2024 and beyond. So get on the wait list. Okay. Disclaimers out there. It's going to be happening very, very soon. Okay. Very, very soon. I'm going to be opening that up. All right. Thank you. There's a comment from a LinkedIn user about the Freightbreaker Sales Accelerator. That program is amazing. I promise it'll change your life. Thank you so much. Thank you for the kind words. I don't know what your name is because it somehow LinkedIn blocked it out, but thank you so much for the kind words. All right, so let's jump into some questions. All right, let's jump into some questions. Hit me up in the comments with questions, and I will do my absolute best. Now, those can be questions about this training. Those can be questions about just freight broker startup. They can be about any phase or topic related to freight broker, freight agent business, or growth. Okay, so feel free to hit me up with questions. Andrew Cornwell, who was a student of Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, okay, who was one of my students, one of my clients, one of my coaching people, has a question. What would be your response if a potential lead says that all their logistics freight is handled by their customers? Okay, customer routed. Okay, oh, our freight is all customer routed. Well, there's a couple things you can do. All right, you can say, oh, I'm sorry, and hang up. Not the most viable option. Okay. Or you could take 10 seconds and you could dig in and ask a couple of questions. The questions that you want to ask center around their inbound freight. Okay. Now, a lot of times when shipping managers take calls from providers and they say it's customer routed, that means that the freight that goes out to their customers, they don't select the providers. They don't manage that. They put it on the dock. Their customers bring a truck in and then pick it up and deliver it back to themselves. So they have no control over that freight. They just load it and then they're done with it. Okay. It's called FOB origin, right? So their liability ends at their dock. All right. So what you want is you want to deal with shippers that have control over the freight. So if they say it's customer routed, what you can do then turn to say is one of two things. You can say, one, you could say, well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever had a customer that had significant delays in getting the freight off your dock and has asked you for help? Right? So then what happens if they have customers, because there are customers that sometimes will hold up and delay getting that freight off their dock. And that causes a problem for the shipper, okay? Because as that freight stacks up, other freight's behind it. It's a never-ending wheel, okay? So if you ask them about customers that have had challenges, what you might be able to do is you might be able to get a referral into them. You might be able to get the company name or the company website, okay? And at which point you can reach out to them and you can connect the dots. The other thing you can say, the other question you can ask is, oh, I totally understand about your customer routed freight, but what about your inbound raw materials? What about your inbound freight? Now, what do I mean by inbound? If you're making, say you're Pepsi, okay? And let's say hypothetically your freight is customer routed. You still are buying bottles. You're still buying labels. You're still buying the tops of these bottles, right? You're still buying syrup. You're still buying the ingredients that goes into Pepsi. So those are things that you're purchasing, right? So those are coming a lot of times from other providers that you would be purchasing them from. So if they have inbound freight, maybe they control the ingredients or the components that are inbound that they use to assemble the product. In this case, it's a bottle of Pepsi. And then they ship it out to their customer, but the customer controls that freight. So it might be a little confusing to you, but you're just going to simply ask them two questions. The first one was, have you ever had a customer that had significant delay in getting the freight off your dock that they might have needed some help? The second question is I totally understand about the customer routed, your outbound customer routed, but what about your inbound raw materials, right? What about the things that you're purchasing in order to build whatever it is they build or create or bottle or whatever, manufacture or extrude or whatever it is that they do, okay? So those are a couple questions you can ask. And if they say no, then there's nothing you can do. Remember, The key is if there's no need, there's no sale. Don't waste your time on people that don't have a need. What they're not giving you an objection, they're giving you what I call a condition. This is a condition that prevents you from doing business with them, not an objection on why they won't do business with you. I hope that helps, okay? If that helped, hit the like button, share right now. All right. All right, question from Socrates49. Do I need a fax service or should I just email as a startup around when should I have my money right for the next Freight Broker Sales Accelerator? Okay. All right. So do you need a fax service? You definitely don't need a fax machine. You may want to have a digital type fax service as a backup because some carriers, believe it or not, still operate from fax. The majority operate digitally through email or through some online platform where they're downloading and uploading like a Dropbox or something like that, right? Or other TMS type features. So you don't need a physical fax machine. Those don't really exist anymore, okay? And they do, but they don't, right? Now, if you have a printer that's already set up and a phone line, it might be easy for you to do that because sometimes those are, the printer fax scanner thing. But faxing is kind of going the way of the buggy whip, right? You don't really see a whole lot of buggy whips, right? So faxing is kind of going away. You'll be able to get away the majority of it with just email and digital. So if you do need fax, just get a digital fax service, a cheap one. It shouldn't be that expensive, but I don't think you're going to need it. Simon, I'm sorry. Second part of your question, Socrates. Okay, so Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. Expect to hear something in this next week. Okay, expect to hear something in this next week about opening enrollment. As far as the price goes, I don't have that. Number one, I haven't finalized it yet. Number two, there's multiple options. There's a variety of options that people can have in order to get enrolled. So, you're just going to have to go through the process, get the updates, and then go from there. If it's something you can afford, great, get enrolled. If it's not, then maybe you can wait till next time. Okay. But right now I've limited information that I can share, but just know that if you are on the Sales Accelerator wait list, if you were on the wait list, okay, freightbrokerbootcamp.com/wait list, you will be the first to get notified when I open enrollment with all the details. Okay. All right. Cool. Simon has a question. He rated the training a 10. Thank you. I got a question about setup as far as computers. I see a lot of these brokers with two screens. Is it something that I can do with just a single screen or a laptop? Absolutely, positively, 100%. You can operate with just one screen. Okay? Especially in the startup realm. Yes. I mean, in the early stages, you don't ever need multiple screens. It's a luxury, not a need. Okay? To have multiple screens, it allows you to have, a lot of different applications open and running at the same time, but it's not a requirement. Okay? I can tell you that I did not have multiple screens as a broker for over a decade. I think probably over a decade before I had multiple screens, and we did just fine. And neither did any of my brokers and most of my agents. So it's not a must. It's a luxury. The reason why you see a lot of people have them now is because the price of them have come way, way down. The technology is better to try to mirror your desktop, and processing speed is better. So it's just a lot easier now than it used to be. But functionally, you don't have to have them. I assure you. All right, question from Torrance. How can I become a freight broker to obtain drayage containers from the port? Well, you have to be licensed by the FMCSA. You have to get your freight broker authority, which there's a process for that. And then if you're targeting port work, if you're targeting drayage and containers, you only really have two options. First, you should probably niche down geographically. So you should pick some specific ports rather than just saying every port. Okay. You should probably niche down geographically because then you're going to be able to isolate not only your prospects, but your carriers. Okay. And then you can always expand later. And then the second thing is you're going to have to identify companies that are importing or exporting. Now, those companies, there's two ways to do this. You can try to go direct to shippers like Pepsi or, just different importer export companies that manufacture, produce, or distribute products and then import or export them, right? So direct shippers, you could try to source direct shippers and reach out to them. Or the easier channel, and the channel that's probably going to be more effective for you in the drayage niche as a broker, is to reach out to international freight forwarders. And here's why. International freight forwarders are who companies like Pepsi and other companies that import or export reach out to manage their freight from origin to destination. So let's say they're importing something from Shanghai, from Taiwan. Okay, let's say they're importing something from Taiwan. The freight forwarder will source the carrier in Taiwan that's going to bring it to the port. They'll get it loaded on the ship. It'll come all the way across the ocean. And then when it lands in whatever port, let's say it's going to Long Beach. So they'll bring it into that port. They'll have it unloaded, and then they'll put it on a truck, and then they'll have it delivered to the final destination, whatever that would be. So it's a multimodal movement, right? You got truck, ocean, truck. So they manage that whole process, including, in a lot of cases, customs clearance, right? And customs regulations. So they have a broad service that they offer as an international freight forwarder. You, as the broker, can play the role when it gets to Long Beach. You could play the role as a broker that's helping them source drayage carriers for that freight. So you would be working for the freight forwarder. They would be your customer, and you would handle the drayage component typically on the pickup or delivery side. So for exporting, you would manage the drayage on the pickup side to go to the port. If you're handling the import, then you would pick it up at the port and bring it to the final destination, if that makes sense. Okay, so I hope that helps. Any chance you could show a call from a graduate making a booking? Maybe in the future. I actually have plans. I have a couple students that have offered to kind of do that, but they've got to record their calls and there's some setup stuff. So maybe in the future we can do that. I'm scrolling. Give me a minute. Okay, Carl asks, who determines what broker to use for a particular shipment? Okay, so if I'm a shipper, okay, let's say, for example, I don't know why this belt is down here, but let's say, for example, I manufacture and sell belts, okay? This is my belt, okay? I don't know why it's down here, but let's say I'm a belt maker, manufacturer. If I have customers, say I'm in the US and I have customers all over the country that are ordering these belts and I've got to ship them to them. Some are LTL, some are full truckload, right? Let's assume it's full truckload. What happens with my carriers and my brokers, I typically have I request a rate proposal for each lane. Let's say I'm in Buffalo and I've got my biggest customers are in Atlanta, Chicago, Boston, and Indianapolis. Okay, let's just say that that's the case. What I would do is I would have my providers quote, give me two primary components. Number one, what is their rate and what is their capacity? How many of these loads can they move on a daily, weekly basis? And what would that rate be? And then from there, if they're an approved provider, okay, what I'm going to do is, depending upon the volume, if I have 10 loads going to Atlanta this week, from Buffalo to Atlanta, I may disperse those 10 loads out amongst a variety of providers, or I could choose to give them all to one provider. So some of it is going to be based upon the volume. Some of that's going to be based upon their historic proficiency and efficiency and what their on-time pickup and deliveries are. And some of that's going to be determined by rate. So there's a variety of variables that go into that. Rate can play a factor, does play a factor, but also trust and your history of proficiency and service is another big factor, right? Most shippers don't like to put all their eggs in one basket. They like to disperse it amongst a variety of different providers. So there is no hard and fast rule to who gets the freight from a shipper. The other big variable is relationships. If I have 10 providers, if I'm a manufacturer and I have 10 primary providers that I'm working with, just for easy math, and I've got super close relationships with 2 of them because I've been doing business with them longer, they may get the majority of the freight. Okay, they may get the majority of the freight, and I may trickle a little bit of freight to the rest of them. That's not uncommon. So I don't have a hard and fast answer for you, but I'm trying to give you a sense as to how it might work depending upon who the shipper is. Okay? Hope that helps. Question from Davon. Davnin. Yeah, Devon. I'll just call it Devon. If it's wrong, try to give me a pronunciation. How many times do you think you should follow up with internal customers or external customers? How many times do you think you should follow up with internal customers or external customers? Please clarify. I'm not quite sure what your definition of internal versus external customers are. Help me to understand that, and I'll try to come back to you. Okay, I'm scrolling. Okay, how do you get connected to military contracts? Okay, number one, as a broker, if you want to start doing business with the military, like the DoD or FEMA or different or GSA, right? Different government entities and programs. Typically, most providers, whether you're a broker or a carrier, have to be in business for at least 3 years. Okay. And then what's going to happen is every one of those companies is going to have a vetting process where you can apply to become a provider. And if you meet their criteria, then they will probably allow you to become a provider where you will come in and then you will try to vet and bid and compete for the government business. Now, there is a lot of freight that the government moves. Okay. They've got thousands of facilities around the United States. They've got hundreds of thousands of employees, right? And so there's millions of employees, right? So depending upon what department you're in. So yeah, there's a lot of freight that the government moves, but you're going to have to meet their specific requirements. There is no one size fits all. You might have to have some additional bonding. You're definitely going to have a little bit of a history, meaning you've had your authority for at least a few years. And then different parties are going to have different requirements. Okay. So I hope that helps, but yeah, once you've been in business for a bit, feel free to do a little bit of research and reach out to them about what their vetting process is, and you can apply to be a provider and then go from there. We were an approved DoD, provider, Department of Defense provider. And I mean, we moved millions of dollars in freight for them. They were not a big customer of ours and we were not a big provider for them, but we moved quite a bit of freight for them. And it was profitable. And the good thing about our program that we were in with the SDDC for the DoD was they paid us in 72 hours, right? So we got paid in 72 hours. Now they took a fee off of it, and I'm not sure that's still in place, but I think it is. But they would pay providers in like 72 hours. All you had to do is provide them documentation and upload it to their system, and boom, you had, you'd get paid very, very quickly. So it cash flowed really, really well. Okay. So hope that helps. And if you're not on the wait list for the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, ding, 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 freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. And if you haven't downloaded the cheat sheet of the training I just went over, right? The secret to overcoming sales objections and the steps and the framework of how to disarm and be a consultative seller, right? freightbrokerbootcamp.com/secret. Download that. Awesome, Torrance. Glad that helped you out, buddy. You're welcome, Simon. Thank you. Charmaine asks, how do I get my license to become a freight broker? Okay. So the FMCSA, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, has a process where you will file an application, There's some check boxes you got to have. You got to have a freight broker bond. You got to have a BOC3. You got to follow your UCR. There's some basic steps in order to request and file an application as a freight broker. Once you submit and meet those steps, then you will become an active licensed freight broker, which allows you, gives you the authority to broker loads anywhere in the United States. Okay. So, I mean, you know, there's a step-by-step process. If you're curious about how to do that, I mean, I'm sure you could search online. You can also join freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Again, we've trained over 10,000 students, freight brokers, freight agents, the most cost-effective, comprehensive online freight broker training. We walk through step by step how to not only get your authority, but set your business up, start getting customers and generating cash flow. Okay. So I hope that helps. Okay, he clarified customers that you have in your pipeline versus customers you're currently doing business with. Okay, so your first question was, let me just make sure, let me just reiterate here. Okay, how many times do you follow up with internal customers or external? Okay, so internal, which is existing customers. So if you have a customer you've been doing business with, and your follow-up process for them should be very regular, meaning if it's not daily, it's usually multiple times per week or at least weekly to communicate with that customer. Some customers prefer email, some customers prefer phone. You know, you'll learn what your customer prefers, right? What an existing customer prefers. And I mean an existing customer, someone that you're already doing business with, you're already moving freight for, they're already set up in your system as a customer. So for what you call internal customers or existing customers, right? Real customers, that's would be kind of the cadence. It'd be daily, weekly, right? It's going to be pretty regular, unless they tell you that, you know, they only move freight once a quarter and maybe they're seasonal, something like that, right? So that would be the exception. So you'll have to ask them how they prefer you to follow up and what the frequency is, because again, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? In the freight business. But the key is you don't always want to sit there with your hand out begging for freight. So it's not just how often you follow up, it's the strategy at which you follow up. It's the words you say, it's the approach you take, right? And that's a lot of what we talk about in the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator is how to be different, right? How to not sit there with your cup and beg for freight, okay? Now, as far as external customers, which is not customers at all, they're prospects, they're potential customers, following up with them depends, right? If you have a prospect that you've got a dialogue with, your goal is to try to gain enough momentum where you can go from call 1 to call 2 to call 3 to call 4 to a potential load, right? Or quoting somewhere in there, you'll be quoting the freight, and you'll identify a need, you'll quote, and then at that point, you'll get your first shipment. Now that might take 3 calls, 5 calls, 10 calls, right? And that the goal here is to compress that time frame. So if you can do 4 calls over the course of a week or 2 weeks, you're more likely to get that business than if you do 4 calls over 4 months. Okay? So your goal is to try to shrink the timeline to navigate the sales process, okay? To navigate that sales pipeline. But there's no hard and fast rule of how often you're going to follow up with them. Now, if you don't get a prospect on the phone and you're following up with them, you definitely don't want to call them every day. And you may not even want to call them weekly. Initially, you may call them multiple times, but after, you know, multiple attempts, you may queue them up to once every other week or once a month, right? As a follow-up. But again, you are trying to find customers who have a need. And if you've called a shipper, a prospect 10 times and you've left multiple voicemails and you've sent emails and you've tried to connect with them on LinkedIn, that's highly likely that they either don't want to talk to you or they don't have a need or both. Okay. So your job as a salesperson, as a freight broker, is to identify need, find people who have a need. And that's a filtering process. So part of the filtering is people that don't call you back, people that don't dialogue with you digitally through email or LinkedIn. They typically don't have a need, because if they had a need and they had pain and you put yourself into their field of view, you're going to be able to start some sort of a dialogue. So I hope that helps. Okay. I'm scrolling. Give me a minute. Okay. Is it easier to become a provider under a big box 3PL? You mean, is it easier to become a carrier? I'm not sure what you mean by provider. Help me to understand what you mean. Are you a carrier trying to connect with brokers? Are you be more descriptive of what you need. I can't really figure it out. All right, guys, listen. So, if I don't answer your question now, maybe I'll try to come back in and do it. But here's what I strongly suggest. How many of you are on the wait list for the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator? FreightBrokerBootcamp.com/waitlist. How many of you are on the wait list right now, waiting in the next week for the text message that's going to get sent out to you, notifying you that we've opened enrollment, and that we're now going to be selecting a small group, right? A very small group of clients that are going to come into that program. How many of you are on the wait list? Hit me up and let me know in the comments. I know one for sure. I know I've probably had 100 people join the wait list in the last week. I don't know, the last 2 weeks, maybe not the last week, but the last 2 weeks for sure. How many of you are on the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator wait list, waiting to be notified of the next enrollment? Question: do you need your broker business established before getting on the wait list? Okay, no, you can get on the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator wait list before you have your own brokerage. But most of the people that take the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator have already taken the Freight Broker Bootcamp. So you can get on the wait list, but the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator is not a startup program. That's the Freight Broker Bootcamp. I want to distinguish that. If you're looking specifically for startup help, Freight Broker Bootcamp is the best choice. Okay. It's way less expensive. It's go at your own pace. It has everything you need A to Z. Okay. If you're looking specifically for help with getting shippers and freight broker sales strategies and having a system that will allow you to predictively get customers in any economic climate, up or down, that's the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. That's a coaching program. That's where I work with you in a group coaching program to teach you and help you deploy my system into your business. Okay? Hope that helps. On the wait list. Awesome. Genevieve is on the wait list waiting. Who else? Who else is on the wait list? Or if you've already taken the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, hit me up in the comments and let me know if you've already taken the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. You've already went through the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, whether that be the self-paced course or whether that be the actual coaching program where I was working with you direct. How many of you have actually went through that program that are on this call right now? I'm just curious. So we got a few people that are actively here live right now that are on the program. Sharzad, are you in the US? Because if you're not in the US, you won't be able to be on the wait list because it's only texting in the US. So if you're running into problems there and you want to be on the wait list, send an email to support@freightbrokerbootcamp.com. If you're outside of the United States or you have an international number, which happens sometimes, send a message to support@freightbrokerbootcamp.com because my texting service doesn't support international. Sorry. Okay, good. Jomo Mighty, have you been in my Sales Accelerator yet? You've been in like 100 of my different trainings. Have you been a part of my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator yet? If not, what are you waiting for, brother? Okay, good. Corey went through the self-paced. Awesome. Yeah, that's perfect. The key is, did it help you? Have you converted anything that you learned in that program, Corey, into revenue? Have you converted the strategies and deployed them? Have you ever taken what you've learned, deployed it into the marketplace, and then leveraged it to get new customers, new revenue, to help build your business? I'd love to hear from you. Okay, cool. All right, Jomo was, yeah, okay, thank you. I was pretty sure you were a part of that sales accelerator because I've been doing it for a couple of years. I was pretty sure you were. Thank you so much for the kind words. Oh, Corey, you have leveraged it for revenue. Good. Maybe we'll have to have you on a future Freight Brokers live follow-up from a student, like a student success story. Maybe we'll have to have you on one of those in the future. Hit me up and let me know. Maybe we can talk about that. All right, guys, listen, we're going to wrap it up for today. Again, I'm going to leave you with this. Get on the wait list if you want to be a part of the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. If you want to learn my entire Freight Broker sales system, it's not just a one-off strategy. It's not just a one-off script. It's an entire system that will help you from your mindset to filling your sales funnel, to overcoming objections, to closing the sale, to getting referrals, to customer development, to how to leveraging technology to enhance your sales offering. It's that entire process. It's that entire system that I have. And if you want to be a part of that, if you want to learn that, if you want to use that to grow your business, a 6, 7, 8-figure business, then you got to get on the wait list, freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. All right. And if you want the cheat sheet from today's training, the secret to overcoming objections, just go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/secrets. All right, guys, listen, appreciate you guys being here. I know you're busy. I know you have a lot of things going on. Again, hit the like button if you enjoyed this training. If you'd like me to come back and do future trainings, hit the like button now. Share the stream. Give me your feedback. And I really appreciate you guys being here. Have an awesome day. Have an awesome week. And I'll see you next week in the next Freight Broker Bootcamp Live.